Hi, my name is Nima Atamati, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cake Life Bake Shop here in Fishtown. I discovered my affinity for baking fairly early, really like baking with my grandmothers like a lot of people do. So both of my grandmothers were really good at baking, and they each had different specialties. So one of them, who we were living with when I was young, would make these things called noon berenji, these little like rice cookies, and another one called noon panjere, which means like a window. So those were like these fritters. My other grandma had like a cottage industry going. Every Persian New Year, she would make the classic pastries. So baklava, these little chickpea ones as well. Those were really like her like claim to fame. So I really started out with the baking, like I was saying, but that quickly migrated into savory cooking. So by the time I was in my early teens, I like loved cooking in general and food, and was doing things like, instead of giving Christmas gifts, I would make Christmas dinner, stuff like that. And so I loved it, and especially being Persian, North American food was super exotic to me because that's not what we had at home. So things like a turkey dinner were like very exciting for me. So yeah, I was living in New York and decided to relocate to Philly because, I always loved Philly ever since I was in college, and, it's a wonderful city. Like there's that, like I'm from Vancouver, and Philly has that like gritty East Coast city thing, but also some of that West Coast chillness, and I really like the combination. I think when it came time to make that decision about, creating a business and not just being a baker, I would have to say a lot of it had to do with naivete, that comes with being young. And I think we had this, fantasy of, being bakers and having our little business, and it's so quaint and it all makes sense and all that stuff. And the reality is that running the business is a significant task in and of itself. And, as soon as we opened, I remember looking at Lily and saying, like, I have a desk job now. And we were looking for a brick and mortar location. Fishtown was one of the neighborhoods that was on our list. It was still developing, but also getting more and more exciting by the month. And so, we were like, what neighborhood needs something like Cake Life? What neighborhood needs a bakery? The thing that has surprised me the most about running our own business is really just like, the breadth of experiences that are part of it. So like you get to like be part of people's lives in this really delightful way, but that happens like both as, a provider with our customers, but also as an employer. Favorite thing in the store, product-wise, like I would say like, I love fruit things, like things with like fresh fruit are kind of always my favorite. So especially in the summer, we get into things like strawberry shortcake and the peaches and cream cake. Like that, those are probably like pretty high on my list. I would describe Fishtown as like, a small but really vibrant community that has really focused on independent businesses over things like chains. Well, the next big thing, I think, the next big challenge for Cake Life to take on is really finding the right ways to grow beyond Fishtown. So whether that means like looking at online sales and shipping like to different parts of the country, or whether that means like, finding a good spot for another location somewhere in Philadelphia, I think like the next growth step is really what I have my mind on a lot for Cake Life, and just like, there's a lot of paths you can take, right? But what's the right one for us?